When we think of the most elite warriors on the planet, our minds conjure a very specific image. We see the Navy SEALs of SEAL Team 6, now officially known as the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or DevGRU. We picture hardened operators, sculpted by the most brutal training imaginable, men who can storm a compound in the dead of night, their movements a blur of silent, lethal efficiency. They are the tip of the spear, the physical embodiment of American military power. But what if the most vital member of that team wasn't the man kicking down the door? What if he was the one who knew which door to kick? What if the most powerful weapon in their arsenal wasn't a rifle, but an antenna and a pair of headphones? This is the story of a new kind of warrior, a hero whose battlefield was the invisible world of the electromagnetic spectrum. A young man from Philadelphia who wasn't a SEAL, but who was so brilliant, so indispensable that he was chosen to fight alongside them in the most dangerous places on earth. His name was Michael Strange, and his story is about more than just quiet courage and unseen skill. It's a story that ends in fire and tragedy, aboard a helicopter with the call sign Extortion 17 in the single deadliest day for U.S. Special Forces in the entire war in Afghanistan. It's a story that would leave a grieving father to wage a second war, a war for the truth. This is the story of the ghost in the machine and the haunting questions his sacrifice left behind. To understand Michael Strange, you have to understand the world that shaped him. He was born on June 6, 1986, and grew up in the Wissinoming neighborhood of Philadelphia. This was a classic American upbringing in a blue-collar, tight-knit community. He was the son of Charles and Mary Strange, a kid who went to St. Bartholomew's and later Northeast Catholic High School. He wasn't a product of a storied military dynasty. He was a product of the Philly suburbs. But the world shifted on its axis when Michael was a teenager. On September 11th, 2001, the towers fell, and the nation was plunged into a new and terrifying kind of conflict, the global war on terror. For a generation of young Americans coming of age in the shadow of 9/11, the call to service was a powerful, almost primal instinct. Patriotism wasn't an abstract concept. It was a duty. Michael Strange was one of those young men. He graduated from high school in 2004, and just a few months later, he walked into a recruiter's office and enlisted in the United States Navy. This was the era of asymmetrical warfare. The enemy wasn't a conventional army with tanks and formations. It was a shadowy network of insurgents who blended into the local population, communicating through burner phones and coded radio messages, planting IEDs and planning ambushes in remote hostile terrain. In this new war, the age-old military doctrine of find, fix, and finish took on a new urgency. You couldn't finish an enemy you couldn't find, and you couldn't find them with satellite images alone. You had to get inside their network. You had to listen. This was the world that Petty Officer Michael Strange was about to enter, but he wouldn't be taking the path of the traditional warrior. His journey wouldn't lead him to the grueling sands of Bud S. training to become a SEAL. It would lead him to a classroom in Pensacola, Florida, at the Center for Information Dominance. He had chosen one of the most intellectually demanding and critically important jobs in the modern military, cryptologic technician collection, or CTR. In simple terms, Michael Strange was learning to be a codebreaker, a signals intelligence, or SIGINT specialist. His job was to hunt, intercept, and analyze the enemy's electronic communications. He was a ghost hunter, tasked with capturing the whispers of insurgents as they crackled across the airwaves. While other sailors were learning to drive ships or fix engines, Michael was learning the art of electronic eavesdropping, mastering the complex technology that could turn a faint radio signal into actionable, life-saving intelligence. After completing his training in the spring of 2005, he was assigned to the Navy Information Operations Command in Kunia, Hawaii. For 4 years, he honed his craft, his focus on the vast expanse of the Pacific. He was becoming a master of his domain, but it was a domain far removed from the dust and chaos of the front lines in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was part of the vast, unseen architecture of modern warfare, a crucial link in the chain, but a distant one. But the war was evolving, and so were the needs of its most elite units. The operators of DevGru, SEAL Team 6, were conducting lightning-fast raids deep in enemy territory night after night. They were the finish part of the equation, but their success, their very survival, depended on the find and fix. They needed the intelligence that Michael Strange specialized in, but they didn't need it from a command center in Hawaii. They needed it in real time. They needed it on the ground, in the helicopter, right there with them as they moved toward the target. In May of 2009, an opportunity arose that was almost unheard of. The elite special warfare units on the East Coast were looking for a handful of the Navy's absolute best cryptologists to embed directly with their teams. This wasn't a desk job. This was a request for a technician to step into the world of the operator. The candidate would have to be not only a brilliant analyst, but also physically and mentally resilient enough to withstand the pressures of operating at the tip of the spear, to keep up with men who were practically superhuman. Michael Strange applied. He was selected. At just 23 years old, the kid from Philly, the quiet signals analyst, was being assigned to the most secretive and revered special operations unit in the world. He was going to war with SEAL Team 6. It's difficult to overstate how unique Michael's role was. He was what is known as an enabler, a specialist attached to the SEAL platoon to provide a unique capability. While the SEALs were experts in direct action, Michael was the expert in signals intelligence. On a mission, his role was one of almost unimaginable pressure and importance. Imagine the scene. A dark, moonless night in a remote Afghan valley. A team of DevGru operators is moving silently towards a compound believed to be housing a high-value Taliban leader. They are the hunters, but they are also the hunted. An ambush could be waiting behind any rock, an IED buried beneath any footpath. In the midst of this team is Michael Strange. He's not at the front of the stack, preparing to breach a door. He's carrying a different set of tools, a sophisticated portable signals interception kit, his head encased in headphones, his eyes locked on a small screen. He is their ears. He's sweeping the radio frequencies, listening for the chatter of enemy fighters. A sudden burst of communication, a coded phrase, a change in radio traffic, any of these could signal an imminent threat. His job is to intercept a message, understand its meaning, and pinpoint its location, all in a matter of seconds. He would then feed that information directly to the SEAL team leader. A word from him could change the entire direction of an operation. It could divert the team around a hidden IED, reveal the location of a sniper's nest, or confirm that the target they were hunting was, in fact, in the building right in front of them. He was the invisible link, the guardian angel, who could hear danger before it could be seen. Between 2009 and 2011, Michael deployed 3 times to Afghanistan, with a short tour in Iraq as well. He proved himself to be more than capable. He was calm under pressure, brilliant at his job, and earned the deep respect of the operators he served alongside. He wasn't a SEAL, but he was one of them. A brother in arms who shared the same risks and faced the same enemies. His family back in Philadelphia saw a young man who was proud of his work, but deeply private about his details. He couldn't share the specifics of his missions, the life and death calculations he made in the dark. To them, he was still just Michael, the loving son and brother, the big teddy bear, as his father Charles would later describe him. He had a tattoo on his back of a tombstone with the names of his family members under the heading, "The Reason I Fight." He had a deep sense of purpose, a quiet dedication that defined him. For his expertise and bravery, he was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor, the Joint Service Commendation Medal with Valor, and a host of other decorations. The Valor device is not given out lightly. It signifies heroism in the face of an armed enemy. The quiet technician from Philly had proven his mettle in combat. He was at the absolute pinnacle of his unique, dangerous profession. And then came the summer of 2011. In May of that year, DevGru had conducted its most famous operation, the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. The world hailed them as heroes. But in the shadows of the war, the fight raged on, just as brutal as ever. 3 months later, on the night of August 5th, 2011, a mission was launched in the Tangi Valley of Wardak Province, a rugged and treacherous area west of Kabul, known to be a Taliban stronghold. A team of U.S. Army Rangers was engaged in a heavy firefight and had called for backup. A quick reaction force was assembled at a nearby forward operating base. The force was a veritable all-star team of American Special Operations, members of DevGru, other Navy Special Warfare personnel, and an Air Force Special Tactics team. In total, 30 American service members, 1 military working dog, his handler, and 7 Afghan commandos boarded a CH-47D Chinook helicopter. Its call sign was Extortion 17. One of the men on that helicopter was Petty Officer Michael Strange. He was there to provide his vital SIGINT support for the operation. The Chinook, a large, relatively slow workhorse helicopter, lumbered into the dark valley. As it approached the landing zone, a group of Taliban fighters hidden on a hillside took aim. One of them shouldered a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, an RPG. He fired. The grenade struck the helicopter's rear rotor blade. Extortion 17 was crippled instantly. It spun violently and crashed into the valley floor, exploding in a massive fireball. There were no survivors. In a single catastrophic moment, 38 souls were lost. It was the largest single loss of American life in the entire Afghanistan War. The dead included 17 Navy SEALs, many from the same Gold Squadron of DevGru that had conducted the Bin Laden raid just months earlier. And among them was the team's eyes and ears, the 25-year-old cryptologist from Philadelphia, Michael Strange. The news hit the special operations community like a physical blow. These men were considered invincible, the best of the best. The loss was devastating, not just in numbers, but in the sheer amount of skill, experience, and courage that was wiped out in an instant. Back in Philadelphia, the Strange family received the knock on the door that every military family dreads. Their son, their hero, was gone. Michael's remains, like those of his fallen comrades, were flown back to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. He was laid to rest with full military honors in the most sacred ground in America, Arlington National Cemetery in Section 60, a part of the cemetery that has become the final resting place for so many of the men and women lost in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For most people, the story might have ended there, a tragic loss, a hero's burial, a family left to grieve. But for Michael's father, Charles Strange, this was just the beginning of a new and painful chapter. In his grief, questions began to surface, nagging doubts that grew into a storm of suspicion. And Charles Strange was not the kind of man to suffer in silence. He began a new mission, a relentless quest for answers. The official narrative was that Extortion 17 was a tragic but straightforward casualty of war, a lucky shot by the Taliban. But as Charles Strange and other families of the fallen began to connect the dots, the official story seemed too simple, too clean. A series of troubling questions emerged, creating a controversy that continues to this day. First, there was the helicopter itself. The CH-47D Chinook was a standard Army transport helicopter. Special Operations Forces typically used more advanced, stealthier helicopters like the MH-47G, which were equipped with better defensive systems and flown by elite crews from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. Why was this high-value team, filled with members of DevGru, put on a conventional, less protected aircraft? Then there was the issue of the flight recorders, the black boxes. In a highly unusual move, the military claimed the black box had been washed away in a flash flood at the crash site. To the families, this explanation strained credulity. How could a device built to withstand horrific crashes be simply swept away? Without it, a detailed second-by-second understanding of the helicopter's final moments was impossible. Most disturbingly, there were questions about the Afghan commandos who were on the flight. The manifest of the Afghan soldiers, who were supposed to be on Extortion 17, was reportedly swapped out at the last minute. Could one of the Afghan soldiers on board have tipped off the Taliban? Was this a meticulously planned ambush born from an intelligence leak? The Taliban had seemed to be waiting in a perfect position for the helicopter to arrive. It felt less like a lucky shot and more like a trap. Fueled by a father's grief and a patriot's sense of duty, Charles Strange embarked on a long and arduous legal battle. He, along with other families, filed Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, requests demanding access to the full investigation report. He gave interviews, spoke at events, and relentlessly pushed back against the wall of official secrecy. As he was quoted in a powerful 2014 expose in Philadelphia Magazine, "They took my son, they're not going to take my voice." His fight was not about conspiracy theories, it was about accountability. He wanted to know if mistakes were made, if corners were cut, if his son and the other men on Extortion 17 were put in unnecessary danger. His public campaign forced the issue into the halls of Congress, prompting hearings and reviews of the rules of engagement and the procedures for transporting Special Operations Forces. The debate remains unsettled. The Department of Defense has consistently maintained that there was no evidence of a leak and that the mission was conducted appropriately given the circumstances. But for the families, the unanswered questions still hang heavy in the air, a painful addendum to their unimaginable loss. The controversy surrounding Extortion 17 became a stark reminder of the often uncomfortable tension between a government's need for national security secrecy and a Gold Star family's right to know the full story of their loved one's sacrifice. The crash of Extortion 17 sent shockwaves through the U.S. military, and its consequences were immediate and far-reaching. Tactically, it forced a hard reevaluation of helicopter insertion procedures in high-threat areas. The vulnerability of a large helicopter like the Chinook to a simple RPG in a confined space like the Tangi Valley led to changes in approach paths, altitude profiles, and the use of escort aircraft and suppressive fire. Strategically, the loss of Michael Strange and other enablers like him was a devastating blow. It wasn't just the loss of brave men, it was the loss of a critical capability. Men with Michael's unique skill set, the ability to fuse technical brilliance with the toughness required for special operations, are exceptionally rare. When he died, DevGru didn't just lose a team member, they lost their ears. The intricate web of intelligence gathering at the platoon level was torn apart, and had to be painstakingly rebuilt. His death underscored just how reliant modern special operations had become on the quiet professionals, the ghosts in the machine. But the most profound and lasting legacy of Michael Strange's life is not found in military doctrine or congressional hearings. It is found in the work of the Michael Strange Foundation, founded by his father Charles. The foundation is a testament to the family's determination to turn their private pain into public purpose. The foundation's mission is simple and powerful: to provide unconditional support to other Gold Star families. They understand in a way that no one else can the unique grief and challenges that come with losing a loved one in service to the nation. The foundation organizes retreats and events, creating a community where these families can connect, share their stories, and heal together. It is a peer-to-peer model built on the idea that the greatest comfort comes from those who have walked the same painful path. Through the foundation, Michael's name has become synonymous not with tragedy, but with healing and resilience. It has created a living memorial, one that actively serves the community that Michael was so proud to be a part of. It is a legacy of compassion, born from the crucible of loss. His life was a testament to the idea that service takes many forms, and that the most critical contributions are often the ones that go unseen. He was a vital part of the world's most elite fighting force, not because of the weapon in his hand, but because of the knowledge in his head and the unwavering commitment in his heart. His death in the tragic fall of Extortion 17 is a story of immense loss, but it is also a story that forces us to confront difficult truths about the costs of war, the responsibilities of leadership, and the right to demand answers. The relentless quest for truth by his father, Charles, ensures that Michael and the other men of Extortion 17 are not just statistics in a long war. They are names, they are faces, and their stories demand to be heard. Michael Strange was a quiet professional who did an impossibly difficult job in the shadows. He gave his life for the men beside him and the country he loved. His legacy is carried on by a family that refused to let his voice be silenced, and by a foundation that offers a beacon of hope to those who have suffered the same ultimate loss. He was the ghost in the machine, the unseen hero, and his story is a profound and enduring reminder that the deepest sacrifices are not always the ones we see. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.